I have a question about interior life. I'm kind of new to the Dhamma. We talk about separating, about letting go of myself, recognizing that I am one with everybody, even those that I may contend with. Recently, I have difficulty doing that. And recently I heard a mention of the idea that if I didn't recognize my own agency, my free will, I might let go of myself more easily. And I don't find that's helping. I'm wondering what your experience is. How do you let go of yourself? How do you recognize thoroughly your unity with everyone? What is that like for you inside?
놓아버린다는 게 키포인트는 아닙니다.
Well, here, letting go is not the point.
그것이 고통을 가져오느냐, 괴로움을 가져오느냐 하는 것입니다.
The point here is whether that brings you suffering or not.
괴로움을 가져온다면, 괴로움에서 벗어나고 싶다면 놓아버리라는 겁니다.
So if that brings you suffering, if that makes you suffer, then you have to let it go.
만약 그것이 괴로움의 원인이 아니라면 놓아버릴 필요가 없습니다.
If that doesn't make you suffer, if that doesn't necessarily brings you suffering, then there is no use. You don't have to let that go.
자유의지가
Free will.
내 괴로움의 원인이 된다면 놓아버리라는 겁니다.
If free will becomes a source of my suffering, then you need to let it go.
자유의지가 괴로움의 원인이 아니라면 자유의지대로 행동해도 괜찮습니다.
But if free will doesn't bring you suffering, it doesn't make you suffer, then you can still have your free will and you can act according to your free will.
추가적인 질문을 하십시오.
Do you have any follow-up questions?
No, I think that points me to a good direction. Thank you.
네, 좋은 방향을.
문제에 대해서 제가 조금 추가적으로 제 경험을 얘기하라고 해서 추가적으로 말씀을 드리겠습니다.
Before we go on to the next question, let me follow up with my experience because the questioner asked for my experience.
제가 청년 때 경찰에 잡혀가서 고문을 당한 적이 있었습니다.
As a young man, I was detained by the police and I experienced torture, physical torture.
그는 내가 잘못한 것을 고백하라고 얘기했습니다.
He told me to confess my wrongdoing.
그러나 나는 그들이 요구하는 것을 행하지 않았기 때문에 말할 게 없었습니다.
But because I didn't do anything they accused me of, there was nothing I could say.
그들은 처음엔 구타를 하다가 나중에는 물고문이라고 해서 숨을 못 쉬게 했습니다.
First, they asked me and they requested me to confess, and then later on, they forced me using a form of torture, and they made it hard to breathe.
근데 그것은 너무 고통스럽고 두려움이었습니다.
It was so painful, and I was fearful.
이를 악다물고 견뎠습니다.
But I persevered.
그러나 사람이 견디는 데는 한계가 있었습니다.
But there was a limit to the extent that I could persevere and persist.
제가 숨을 못 쉬어서 거의 의식을 잃을 지경이 됐습니다.
And then I actually reached a point where I almost fainted because I was not able to breathe well.
그때 갑자기 눈앞에서 하얀 화면이 나타났습니다.
At that moment, there is this image of whiteness.
그 화면에 개구리가 한 마리 매를 맞고 쫙 뻗어서 달달 떨면서 죽어가는 모습이 보였습니다.
In that image, there was a frog. The frog was bitten and it was shivering and it was dying.
근데 그 모습이 저의 현재의 처지와 똑같았습니다.
That frog was actually a reflection of the state that I was in.
근데 저는 어릴 때 개구리를 많이 잡았습니다.
But then I realized as a child, I actually caught a lot of frogs.
작은 매를 가지고 개구리 등을 때려서 이렇게 잡아서 닭의 모이를 줬습니다.
I used to hit the frogs and with a little stick, and then chop it into pieces, and then gave the pieces to chicken.
근데 저는 아무런 죄의식도 없었고 그것이 문제의식이 없었습니다.
But as a child, I didn't feel any sense of guilt, and I didn't feel any wrong about doing those things.
불교를 만나서 살생하지 마라 해도 거기에 대해서 사실은 깊은 성찰은 없었습니다.
After I became a Buddhist, there was this precept of not killing, but I didn't really have a true understanding of what it meant.
근데 내가 개구리처럼 그렇게 죽게 됐습니다.
But at that time, I became just like the frog that I caught and killed, and then I was becoming like that frog.
그때 내가 얼마나 두려워하고 또 생명이 얼마나 소중한지를 알게 됐습니다.
And only then I became I realized how fearful that the frog must have been and how precious a life is.
그때 갑자기 자책하는 마음이 들면서 너 같은 놈은 죽어야 돼 이런 생각이 들었습니다.
But at that moment, I felt a sudden sense of guilt, and then a man like me who have done all those terrible things, I should be dying. I should die.
그래서 저항하는 것이 멈췄습니다.
And then I paused protesting and making all these actions against this process of dying.
얼마 있다가 고문도 멈췄습니다.
And soon after, the torture has stopped as well.
그러니까 저항을 멈추자 바로 고통도 멈췄다는 거예요.
So as soon as I stopped agitating, my suffering stopped.
그렇게 여러 번 되풀이해서 고문을 당하고 있었는데요.
And that process repeated many times.
그런데 고문을 하는 그들도 고문하는 것이 매우 힘들기 때문에 중간중간 휴식을 해가면서 했습니다.
And those people who were torturing me, it was not an easy task for them as well, so they had to take a break from time to time.
그들이 휴식 시간에 자기들끼리 얘기하는 것을 들었습니다.
So during one of those breaks, I overheard what they were talking about amongst themselves.
그들의 자녀가 대학 시험 치는 준비를 하는데 이번에 시험 성적이 잘 나와야 될 텐데 못 나오면 지방으로 가게 되면 내가 경비가 많이 든다. 이런 일상적인 대화를 하고 있었습니다.
So they were talking about mundane, ordinary things. For example, one of the guys, he had a child who takes a college entrance exam. If the daughter or son doesn't really have a good exam score, then he or she needs to go to another city. Then it will force me to spend a lot of money, and then economically it will be difficult for them. Those kind of everyday things.
그들은 나를 고문하는 악마가 아니고 그들은 내 주위에 있는 평범한 시민이었습니다.
At that time, they're not the devils that were torturing me, but they were just ordinary citizens like my neighbors.
그들이 집에 가면 그냥 사랑하는 한 여인의 남편이고 한 아이들의 아버지고 한 노인의 아들일 뿐입니다.
So when they go home, they're just loving and beloved husbands, fathers and sons.
그리고 그들은 직장인일 뿐입니다.
And they're just an employee of a company or a government or whatever that is.
그때 저 속에 있던 그들에 대한 증오심이 미움이 사라졌습니다.
And at that moment, my hatred and resentments towards that people just disappeared.
저는 그때 성경의 한 구절이 떠올랐습니다.
And then I realized and I recalled a phrase from the Bible.
예수님께서 십자가에 못 박혀서 돌아가시면서 자신을 십자가에 못 박은 사람들을 향해서 주여 저들을 용서하소서라고 말했습니다.
The Jesus, when he was dying when he was crucified, towards the people who executed him, he said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing.
그 다음 문장이 저들은 자기가 지은 죄를 모릅니다라고 했습니다.
So important part here is they do not know what they're doing.
저는 어릴 때 성경을 보면서 그것을 잘 이해할 수가 없었습니다.
When I was young, as I read those phrases, I didn't really understand what they meant.
그런데 오늘 저는 그것을 이렇게 비교적 온전하게 이해할 수가 있었습니다.
But now I have a better understanding what it means.
이렇게 우리들은 경험을 해 가야 합니다.
So, like this, we have to have experiences.
머리로 이해하는 것, 머리로 지식으로 아는 것은 실제 인생에 도움이 되지 않습니다.
So, knowledge that you know intellectually doesn't really help practically in your daily lives.
그러니까 뭘 해야 된다, 버려야 된다 이런 것이 중요한 것이 아니라 실제로 그렇게 할 때 여러분들에게 괴로움이 사라지는 경험을 하게 됩니다.
So not only understanding you have to do something, you have to let something go. When you actually experience that, then you realize that your suffering just goes away.
네,